I'm going to lose a few friends in the trade for this one, because there are things every mechanic knows that most drivers don't, and some garages are perfectly happy to keep it that way. I've stood in my workshop and watched people hand over hundreds, sometimes thousands of pounds for work that was never needed, on faults that were never really there, simply because nobody ever told them how their own car actually works. So today, I'm telling you 5 things the trade would rather you didn't know, and every single one of them can save you money the next time your car does something that makes your stomach drop. I'm Roy Stroud. I'm 45 and I've spent 22 years as an independent mechanic here in the Midlands. No dealership badge on my overalls, nobody paying me to say any of this, and that's exactly why I can say it. Before we get into it, hit subscribe, because there's a good chance one of these 5 will stop you, or a mate, from being taken for a ride at the counter. Right, let's get into it. None of this needs you to pick up a spanner. You don't have to fix your own car to stop getting fleeced over it. A little bit of knowledge is the difference between walking into a garage and being told what's actually wrong, and walking in and being told whatever they fancy. Here are the 5. Secret number 1, that service light on your dash is a reminder, not a diagnosis, and it is nowhere near the emergency the dashboard makes it feel like. You're driving along, everything's fine, and suddenly there's a "Service Now" message or a little spanner glowing at you, and your heart sinks because you're already imagining the bill. Here's the truth. On the vast majority of cars, that light is on a timer or a mileage counter, and on newer motors it's watching oil condition and how you drive. It is not telling you that something has broken. It's telling you the car is due some attention, and quite often the only thing it actually wants is an oil and filter change. Now, I'm not telling you to ignore servicing, quite the opposite. Keeping on top of it is the single best thing you can do for a car. What I'm telling you is not to panic and not to assume that light means a fault, because that panic is exactly what some places rely on. You roll in frightened and you roll out having paid for a long list of extras you were talked into. Get your service done properly, on schedule, by someone you trust, and once it's done, that light gets reset. That's all it is. A reminder, switched off. Don't let a glowing spanner talk you into a 4-figure bill. And here's a bit more that most people never get told. On a lot of modern cars, especially German ones, the servicing is what they call condition-based, which means the car is actually working out how far you can go based on how you drive, how cold it starts, how long your journeys are. That's clever, and it's genuinely useful, but it also means 2 identical cars can ask for a service at completely different mileages, and neither of them is faulty. The car in front of you at the school gates flashing up "Service due" hasn't got a problem, it's just done the sums. I had a chap in not long ago, panicking, absolutely convinced his gearbox was on the way out because of a service message. There was nothing wrong with it. The car wanted an oil change and a reset. That was the entire story, and he'd spent a week losing sleep over a light that was doing exactly its job. So learn what your specific car's light means, keep your service history straight, and treat that message as a calendar reminder, not a fire alarm. Secret number 2, on a healthy car, most of those bottles of additive are a waste of your money, and the counter is where they get you. You've paid for your bits, and just as you're getting your card out, do you want an engine flush with that? A fuel system cleaner? Something for the gearbox? Little bottles, 10 or 15 quid each, and they add up fast. Here's the reality. Modern petrol and diesel in this country already has detergents blended into it. Modern engine oil is a genuinely brilliant, heavily engineered product, with all the cleaning and protecting chemistry already in it. Far better than anything I was pouring in 30 years ago. On a car that's maintained and running fine, tipping more of that stuff in does next to nothing except lighten your wallet. Now, I'll be fair, if you've bought an old, high-mileage runabout that's burning a bit of oil or weeping a leak, there are a couple of products that can genuinely buy you some time, and I'll use them myself in the right situation. But that's a specific fix for a specific problem, not something a healthy car needs at every service. The best additive for your engine is the one that comes free. Changing the oil when it's due with the right grade. Do that, and you can walk straight past the shelf of miracle bottles. There's one more thing worth knowing here, because it can actually cost you rather than save you. On a high-mileage engine that's never been flushed, an aggressive engine flush can sometimes loosen up years of built-up gunk all at once and send it somewhere you really don't want it, blocking an oil passage or a pickup. So the very product that's sold as a bit of a tidy-up can, on the wrong car, cause the exact problem you were trying to avoid. That's not a reason to be frightened of everything in a bottle. It's a reason to understand that these things are tools for specific jobs, not magic you pour in for good luck. A car that's been serviced regularly its whole life doesn't need any of it. Look after the oil, use decent fuel from a busy forecourt, and the chemistry that matters is already doing its work. Secret number 3, and this one is worth its weight in gold every winter. If your heater's gone weak or lukewarm, the cause is very often something cheap, not something expensive. Come the first proper cold snap, the phone starts ringing, and half of them are convinced they need a new heater matrix, which, fair warning, is one of the nastiest jobs on the car because it's buried deep behind the dashboard and the labour alone can run into serious money. But here's what most people don't know. Your heater works by passing hot coolant through a little radiator called the heater matrix, tucked up inside the dash, and it's usually one of the highest points in the whole cooling system. And here's the counterintuitive bit. That matrix only makes heat from hot liquid, not hot air. So if your car is even slightly low on coolant, air rises and collects at the highest point, which is exactly where the heater matrix sits. The liquid drains back down to the engine, the matrix fills with air, and you get cold or lukewarm air at your feet, no matter how high you crank it. 9 times out of 10 on that call, the fix is checking the coolant level and clearing an airlock, which is a fraction of the cost of the matrix job people are bracing themselves for. Now, one honest word of caution: if it is low, get the reason found, because coolant doesn't just vanish and a leak needs sorting. But before you let anyone quote you for tearing the dash apart this winter, get the coolant checked first. I've solved that exact problem more times than I can count, and it's usually the cheapest thing in the book. If you want to check it yourself, it's dead simple, and it's one of the few jobs I'd happily send anyone off to do on their own driveway. When the engine is stone cold, never hot, have a look at the coolant expansion tank under the bonnet. There are minimum and maximum marks on the side, and the level should be sitting between them. If it's down near the bottom or you can't see any at all, that's very likely your weak heater right there. Top it up with the correct coolant, mix properly, run the car up to temperature with the heater on full, and often the heat comes flooding back once the air works its way out. Now, I'll be straight with you, a weak heater can occasionally be something else, like a thermostat that's stuck open so the engine never gets properly hot in the first place, and that's a job for a mechanic. But coolant level is free to check, and it's the first thing any honest mechanic would look at, so it should be the first thing you rule out before you let anyone near your dashboard with a set of trim tools. Secret number 4, car batteries have a sell-by date, just like the milk in your fridge, and where you buy one matters more than you'd think. People assume a battery is a battery, and that brand new is brand new. It isn't. A modern battery comes filled and charged from the factory, and from that moment, it very slowly starts to deteriorate on the shelf, whether it's in a car or not. Buy one that's been sitting in a warehouse or at the bottom of a pile for a year, and you've bought a battery that's already used up a chunk of its life before it's turned a single engine over. I've seen batteries fail embarrassingly early for exactly that reason, long before they should have. So treat it like the supermarket. There's a date code on the battery, and you're well within your rights to ask to see it, and to ask for a fresh one, ideally something made in the last few months, not something that's been gathering dust. And this matters more in 2026 than it ever did, because so many cars now have stop-start systems, and hybrids carry their own separate 12-volt battery on top of the big one. And those systems are far fussier about battery health than the old motors ever were. A tired or wrongly fitted battery on a modern car can throw up all sorts of odd faults that look far more serious than they are. So when you're buying, check the date, get it fitted, and, on newer cars, code it in properly, and don't just grab whatever's nearest on the shelf. And there's a real trap on modern cars here that catches people out and costs them money. Cars with stop-start don't take an ordinary battery. They take a special heavy-duty type, an AGM or EFB, built to handle switching off and on again at every set of lights. Fit a cheap standard battery to one of those to save a few quid, and it'll be flat and finished in no time, and you'll be back buying another one before you know it. On top of that, a lot of modern cars need the new battery registered or coded to the car's electronics, so the charging system knows a fresh one's gone in and treats it correctly. Skip that step, and even a brand new correct battery can behave oddly. And here's a free bit of advice. If your battery's a few years old and the car's cranking slowly on a cold morning, don't wait for it to leave you stranded in a car park in January. Most decent garages and plenty of the motor factors will test a battery for you at no cost. A 2-minute test now is a lot better than a call out and a jump start later. Quick favour before the last one, because I've saved the biggest money saver till the end. If any of this has already made you think twice, tap the like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps this reach someone who's about to be talked into a bill they don't need. Cheers. Right, the big one. Secret number 5, and this is the one that's cost people the most money over the years. When a whole cluster of warning lights comes on at once, it usually isn't a whole cluster of problems. It's usually one fault, wearing several hats. Picture it. You're driving and suddenly the engine light, the ABS light and the traction control light all come on together, and your heart sinks because it looks like the whole car's falling apart at once. But here's what the trade knows and a lot of drivers don't. All these systems are wired together, sharing information and sharing sensors. So one single fault, something as small as one wheel speed sensor, or a low battery voltage, or one dodgy connector, can set off several warning lights at the same time because the car's computer sees a problem and switches related systems off as a safety measure. The lights look dramatic. The actual fault is often small and singular, and this is exactly where people get fleeced. I've had folk come to me having already paid another garage for ABS work and traction control work, and heaven knows what else, item by item, only for every light to come straight back on because none of that was the real fault in the first place. The real fault was one thing and it never got fixed. So if your dashboard lights up like a Christmas tree, don't have a heart attack. And don't let anyone charge you to fix each system separately. Get it plugged in and scanned properly first. Find the one fault the codes are actually pointing at, put that right, and watch how often the whole lot goes out together. One proper diagnosis is a fraction of the price of paying for 4 repairs you never needed. And I'll tell you the one that catches people out most of all, because it ties straight back to what we just talked about. A weak or dying battery. When battery voltage drops too low, half the systems on a modern car start throwing wobblies at once because they're not getting the steady power they need, and up come the warning lights, all together looking terrifying. People spend a fortune chasing individual faults when the actual cause was a £15 a year battery on its last legs. So a proper diagnosis doesn't just mean plugging in a code reader and reading the first thing off the screen either, and this is where a good mechanic earns their money. It means reading the codes, yes, but then clearing them and seeing which ones come straight back, because the ones that return are the live faults and the rest are often just history. Anyone can plug in a cheap scanner and reel off a shopping list of parts. A good one uses it as a starting point to actually find the cause. So when your dash lights up, your job as the owner is simple. Insist it's diagnosed properly before a single part gets ordered, and be very wary of anyone who wants to start replacing things one at a time and charging you for each go. So there they are. 5 things the trade would rather you didn't know. 1. The service light is a reminder, not a fault, so don't panic your way into a big bill. 2. On a healthy car, most additives are money down the drain. 3. A weak heater in winter is usually just low coolant, not a new matrix. 4. Batteries have a shelf life, so check the date before you buy. And 5, the big one, a dashboard full of lights is usually one fault, not 5, so get it properly diagnosed before anyone charges you to fix each system in turn. Now, let me be fair, because I always try to be. The vast majority of mechanics in this country are honest, hard-working people who'll do right by you, and a good garage is worth its weight in gold, so don't take any of this as me saying everyone's out to rob you, because they're not. But the ones who do take advantage rely on one thing, and one thing only: that you don't know how your own car works. So take that away from them. You don't need to be a mechanic, you just need to know enough to ask the right question and to smell it when something's off. That knowledge is the cheapest insurance you'll ever have. So I want to hear from you. Have you ever been charged for something on your car that you found out later you never needed? Or is there a bit of mechanics knowledge that saved you a fortune over the years? Drop it in the comments, because your story might just save the next person reading this from getting stung. If this was useful, hit like, subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next one. Look after it, and it'll look after you. This video is general guidance based on common automotive engineering principles and years of independent workshop experience. Every vehicle and situation is different, so always get your own car checked and take independent advice from a qualified mechanic before making decisions about repairs or purchases. And if a warning light is on, don't ignore it, get it properly diagnosed.